So today we're going to do a morning yin practice. All you will need today is a bolster. So one of these babies. Now, if you don't have one, because this isn't the most common prop, you could take a couple of firm blankets. These are yoga blankets, but any firm blanket. You could take another mat and roll it inside the blanket, or you could take two blankets and roll them up like so. So you make like a little yoga burrito. You could also take a couch cushion that's similar in shape if you have one, or a few throw pillows. So that anything that just is a little bit dense will work for this practice. And that's all you're going to need. So I am going to start with a wide-legged forward fold. So we're going to just sit up wide. Now, I like to go sideways on my mat for that because it pads my heels. But if you have carpet, then you could just let the heels be on the carpet. And then you can take your bolster, put it in front of you like so. If you can go all the way down, if you can't, just bring it in front of you with your elbows. And if you really have trouble getting forward, just bring your hands behind you and just work on pushing the hips forward. And we're just going to hold this for a little bit. This is yin, so we're just going to relax. And you might notice your inner thighs are a little tight. Let the head hang down. And just start to focus on your breath. And the more you can relax, it's a good pose to start with because the more you can relax, the lower down you can be. So you might just notice you can sink a little bit. Soften the shoulders, soften the hips, soften the toes. Let your breath get deeper and longer. Good. So we're just going to slowly, without coming up, staying low, we're going to walk on over to the right leg. And we're working on bringing that left elbow down and maybe even pushing a little into that right hand. Just so you can square the shoulders over the leg. If the leg is far away, you could use your bolster here. You could even put it down here so you have your head resting on it. Squaring the shoulders. Or you can just not have the bolster at all. So I'm going to stay low again. Come back to center. Let's just stay here for a moment. And then going over to the opposite side. So you can have your bolster again on that leg. Or on the lower part of the leg for the head. The goal is just to be softening into the pose so you can relax. And we're still trying to square those shoulders and soften the hips. Now, if you're wondering if your other foot can turn in, yes, it can turn in. It's totally fine. We're not trying to muscle the legs in any particular position. Sometimes in practice, you might be doing that, but in practice, it's not important. Good. And then coming back to center. And bring that bolster with you. Folding. Maybe coming down a little lower. And then coming up. Very nice. So we're just going to set this aside for now. We'll need it in a few. We're going to bend into your left leg and place it inside your right. Turn your palm up on your straight leg, and we're just going to bring your hand to your hip. Turn the chest toward the bent knee. So we're just trying to line the chest up with the bent knee. And then we're going to just lean on over. So we're reaching that hand past your foot. If it doesn't go past, if it's down here, that's okay. It just working toward past your foot, turning your chest. So you're thinking about the chest turning toward the ceiling. And maybe let's just start with reaching the arm up. Good. And then we're going to reach it back just for a stretch into the chest. And then overhead. And reach from the hip all the way to the fingertips. It's like we're holding a ball between our hands. Good. Coming up, let's do the other side. We're going to just switch. Getting a nice deep stretch to the inner parts of our legs here. So palm up. Turn the chest toward the knee, hand on the hip. So we're turning the chest. And then reaching over. And then reaching the arm up and overhead. Let's start with reaching it up. Again, just reaching it back. And then overhead. Good. Holding that ball between the hands. Reaching from the hip through the fingertips. So we're like pressing the hip down as we reach the fingertip. Good. 2 more breaths. Good. Coming up. Very nice. Ooh. Let's roll those shoulders out a little bit. And then bring the feet together. Let's just bring this bolster in. I'm going to lay that right on your mat. I'm going to come up onto your hands and knees. And we're going to just take it one step at a time. So you do what you can. Don't worry about what you see. Just do what feels good to you in this moment. So this practice serves you. So we're going to take your right leg, kick it straight behind you, and set the toes down on the mat. Let's just stretch through the heel for a moment, getting into that calf muscle. Nice. And then we're going to release, stack your hips. Good. Now we're going to take your hand, your right hand to your hip. Now this foot could be forward. So it all depends on how hard you want to work or how hard you don't want to work. And this foot could be straight. It could also be back. So your left knee, your left foot could go straight down the mat. It could also be back for a little more balance. And then we're going to take this foot and maybe line it up with your knee. Press the hip forward. Pull your belly in and think about the chest turning up. So it's going to turn sideways, but the energy is up. Good. Now maybe we're going to lift that leg. Good. Now you could stay here. You don't have to go any further. Maybe reach that hand up. Nice. Pull the leg back a little bit more. Nice. Now we're going to bend the knee, maybe grab onto that foot. So we're just going to start by just grabbing the top of the foot and hold. press the hip forward for a hip stretch through that hip flexor. Good. If you want to open the shoulder a little more, take your hand, just walk it around your toes and over to the bottom. Keep pressing the hip forward. Keep pulling that knee back. Good. And release. We're going to bring that hand down. We're going to bring the knee down. Now let's just walk the knees over to the right side of the mat. Set the hips over to the left. I'm going to bring that bolster in against the thigh and come down. So we're going to bring that leg behind you. So we bring it behind the foot and then turn, relax onto your bolster. Could have a pillow here if you want it under your head as well. And just soften. Now, for some people, this doesn't feel like a whole lot. For me, I definitely feel it down the front of my hip. We're just relaxing here, letting go. Really letting the breath be nice and deep. And slowly press it up. Bring the legs out in front. Sitting up tall. And coming onto our hands and knees again. I'm going to switch sides, but you just stay where you are. Just so you can see me better. I'm going to take that left leg, kick it straight behind you, set the toes down, press through the heel. Get a nice stretch through that calf. Good, and then release. You're gonna stack those hips. Keep that foot there. Your other foot can be where you need it to be. Bring your left hand to your hip. And maybe inch this foot in line a little bit more. Good, maybe lift the leg. Maybe lift the hand. Good, maybe bring that leg back a little bit. So we're stretching through this front hip flexor. Nice, bend the knee maybe. Grab onto the foot. We're just bringing that knee back. There's lots of options. So my teacher used to say, he probably still says it, your practice is voluntary, make it voluntary. So you're always knowing that you have choices. The hard part sometimes is remembering that you have choices. Walk the hand around the foot. So that's why sometimes you hear teachers often say maybe or decide, so that you remember that it's a choice. It's not, there's no mandatory yoga pose. Good, breathe. And then release. We're going to bring that hand down, that knee down. Walk the knees over to the left and walk the hips over to the right. And sometimes we make choices because we just don't know what the options are. But that's why you just ask your teacher. You're going to bring that knee back or research, till you know what your options are. Square the shoulders, coming down. And just relaxing. Softening the heart. Softening the solar plexus. Softening the throat. The forehead. So let's slowly come up to seated. Sitting up for a moment. Take this bolster and just set it aside. So you can keep it where you can reach it. So we'll leave it right there. And I'm going to come onto my back. Straighten into the legs. And straighten into the arms. So just reach your fingers and your toes away from each other, like you're stretching when you first get out of bed, stretching all the way from fingertips to toe tips, and then relax. Let's do it again. Reach from fingers to toes. Reach, 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 stretch. And I'm going to take the hands behind my head, like I'm laying under the sun on the beach. I'm just going to walk my head, arms, and shoulders over to the right. I'm going to stay this way for a moment so you just feel the accordion opening of your rib cage. And then if you'd like to, you can bring the legs over to the same side. You could even cross the left leg over the right. Relax. Let's walk the legs back to center and the upper body back to center, finding that straight line. And then we'll bring the upper body over to the other side, the left side, opening into that chest, the side. And maybe bringing the legs over to that same side, maybe crossing the right leg over. Breathing deep. So we're going to walk the legs to center, walk the upper body to center. So we're just a straight line again. And bring the hands out from underneath the head, bending into the knees. Just going to walk the feet to the edges of the mat so you can feel the edges with your feet. We're going to keep the feet there. And we're going to kind of mirror a move we did earlier. We're just going to have the legs stagger a little as we drop the legs over to the right. Let them stagger just a hair. And you're really going to really push into your glute a little. So we're adding a little muscle here, where before it was just a lot more passive. So we're stretching into the front hip flexor and maybe your quad, coming up to center. And then over to the other side, pressing through the glute, lifting, stretching. Good. Let's do it a couple more times on each side. Just bring those legs over. Don't worry about the breath. Lift the glute, press. Good. And then come back up to center. Over to the other side. Press through the glute. Good. Coming up. Let's do one more on each side. Press through that glute. Lift, stretch. Back up. And over. Lift, stretch, and up. Good. Back to center. Nice. So let's take your bolster or whatever prop you had and put it underneath your legs. This is really great because it just helps you soften the back a little bit. I'm just going to relax the legs over that prop for a moment. And then let's hug both knees into the chest and just rock from side to side. The knees come apart. You're going to grab onto either the ankles or the feet if you can. And just pulling, you're going to pull with the hand, pull the right knee down toward the floor, then the left and the right. Just a nice little rocking sensation. Happy baby. So I used to teach this in kids yoga and I'd say happy baby. And then all the kids would start crying. They'd all pretend like they were crying babies. And I'd say, oh, happy baby, happy baby. And then they would all be stumped for a moment. What does a happy baby sound like? And they'd figure it out. Good. Finding center and stillness. Press both knees down toward the floor. You can use your hands to help you. And then release. We're going to just lay the legs over our bolster. Arms down by the sides. Closing your eyes and just soften. Just allow the effects of your practice to soak into your muscles, your joints, your bones, ligaments, heart, mind. Let's just take a few more breaths right where we are. And then gently bending into the knees. And move our prop out of the way a little bit. Rolling onto one side of our body. Pressing up to a seated position. Thank you for sharing your practice with me. Have a wonderful rest of your day.